What's up, ladies and gentlemen, it's Artisans back with another video, and today we're going to be talking about the top settings, well, it's actually the very basic settings for your camera to achieve the most cinematic looking video. Just before we do that, let's roll the intro. Welcome back to the channel. It's good to see you all, and just before we jump into this video, there are a few things that I want to tell you. I've moved to a new place, so I don't know really what the sound is like. I feel like it's a bit echoey. The second thing, apparently there's a massive storm outside, so you might hear some knocks and bangs and wind and stuff like that going outside. But yeah, let's get to the point. Camera settings. The first thing what I want to talk about is your frame rate. So frame rate is kinda important for your video to look more smooth and cinematic in the way that the human eye can basically see 20 to 24 images every second. It doesn't mean you don't see the difference from 30 to 60 frames a second, but like the eye and the brain can process only 20 to 24 images per second, so that leads you to a fact that the most cinematic frame rate is 24 frames a second. Obviously you can shoot 25 or 30, like I like to shoot my videos at 30 frames a second, and I will explain you why just in a second. But if you look at most of the Hollywood movies, a lot of stuff is shot in 24 frames a second, because that gives you this nice kind of motion blur. The video doesn't look too stuttery. For example, human eye seeing 20 to 24 frames a second, if you like wave your hand in front of your eyes, it's not 100% sharp. Like you can even see some of the motion blur, so that's considered as a very cinematic look. So I like to shoot at 30 frames a second because whenever I shoot my B-roll, I use 180 frames a second, which I then convert down to 30, which is very easy. 180 goes along well with 60, so I mean with 30, sorry, which means it's just 6 times slower. Obviously I could convert my slow-mo video from 180 to 24 as well, but yeah, I kind of feel comfortable shooting at 30 frames a second. So that's the first thing. 24 frames a second, 25 frames a second, that's gonna be the most cinematic frame rate for your camera. Second thing we're gonna be talking about is just as important as the frame rate, which actually goes along with the frame rate a lot, is the shutter speed. So there is this rule called the 180 rule. Don't ask me why, I haven't done really research, but I've learned it and I am sticking to that whenever I'm shooting my YouTube videos. So 180 rule basically means you have to double your shutter speed from what sort of frame rate you shoot. For example, if you shoot 24-25 frames a second, you want your shutter speed to be at 1/50th of a second. For me, I'm shooting at 30 frames a second, so my shutter speed is gonna be 1/60th of a second. So that is gonna give you the best natural look from what camera reads using the shutter speed, and from what shutter speed you actually, from what frame rate you're actually using. So these two things are gonna go along very good. If you're gonna use too high of a shutter speed, you're gonna lose a lot of motion blur, so the videos are gonna look very choppy and very shaky and choppy in general. So that's not what you want. You want it all to be very nice, smooth, natural looking motion blur. So let's use 24 frames a second, 25 frames a second, and then double your frame rate. The next thing we're going to be talking about is shallow depth of field. As you can see, I have this lens right here with an f1.4 aperture, and that is considered as a very cinematic look if you're going to use a shallow depth of field in your videos. For example, why would you use that? Shallow depth of field is a very good way how to isolate your object from the background. If you have shallow depth of field and you're shooting, let's say, two people conversation over the shoulder, you're focusing on the, let's say, the girl in front, and she's perfectly in the focus and the background is all kind of blurry, so there are no any distractions. People are going to be completely drawn to her talking or doing whatever. And that's the other thing that I already said. It's a very easy way how to make the audience look at some specific part of the frame that you want them to look at. If that part is going to be in the focus and everything is going to be out of focus, then yeah, it's gonna get drawn attention to that specific spot in the scene. Or as I said, you can just, you know, isolate your object from the background. It's just a very good way of keeping your audience attention on the details that you want them to look at in your video. So that's thing number 3. And the last but not least is gonna be a flat profile. Flat profile is used in filmmaking to create this sort of higher dynamic range, which is very good for post-productions, for color grading and editing in general. So you want to use the flattest profile you can possibly get on your cameras. For example, I'm using the, whatever it's called, Cine-D or whatever the Panasonic Lumix G cameras has. I know Sony's has S-Log, Canon's has C-Log. So these are all flat profiles. So it means you're gonna get these very soft, creamy, I almost want to say like milky looking feeling shadows, which are not gonna be contrasty at all. And you might retain more information from these shadows as well as from highlights. So at the end of the day, you get higher dynamic range. And that's where I'll leave you guys. Make sure you comment down below if you have any questions about these specific settings. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Make sure you like the video and share with your friends. And you check around for more of my videos. And I will see you guys in the next one. And the storm outside sounds very, very bad. And the lighting has been changing all the time. Probably looks really crap. Well, we'll see what I can do in post. Yeah, see you guys in the next one. Shh.